I think this is maybe a good chance to just bring up some of the reasons that in particular I was thinking of when these artists were talking. The reasons why the Japanese aesthetic in visual art, particularly in manga and anime, has struck such a chord in particularly the early years of this century. On the one hand, aesthetically, as we were saying earlier, it's largely a line-based medium versus the shading or versus the depth-based medium in Western arts. And I think I should probably cite Takashi Murakami by name. Some of you may have heard of Takashi Murakami. He's a very popular contemporary Japanese artist whose work is incidentally going to be exhibited at the Brooklyn Museum starting in April. So that's coming up very, very soon. You'll have a chance to encounter his work in all its breadth and color. But Murakami talks about the line-based aesthetic with a term he coined called super flat, a super flat aesthetic that he applies to Japan. Murakami's an artist, he's not a critic or a professor, so various critics have poked holes in some of his theses, but super flat seems to me to be pretty eloquent as a way of describing a certain aesthetic that comes out of Japan. And I think one of the reasons it has been so successful overseas in recent years is that we have in effect become accustomed to flat images. Everything from your flat screen TV to the internet and images being broadcast online or being streamed online to your PSP, the portable PlayStation. People are carrying onto planes and watching full-length movies at their seats without having to rely on the fluff that's broadcast by the airline itself. Flatness as a visual aesthetic is, I think, partly connected to the success of the aesthetic coming out of Japan. Again, Japanese have been illustrating with the line and the flat style for centuries. But now the technologies that are available to us, those of us in developed nations, I should say, have sort of come to accommodate that visual style very, very effectively. The internet definitely can't be overlooked in any discussion of pop cultural exchange. When I was a kid and read my first Haruki Murakami story, he's a Japanese novelist and short story writer, in the pages of the New Yorker magazine, the only way I knew he was Japanese was because of his name. I couldn't find out anything about him. He hadn't been written about in contemporary authors, the guidebook in the library yet, and my mother had never heard of him. Today, if you pick up a manga by a Japanese artist or any artist, you can immediately pop in a Google search and find out all kinds of things about them. So whether they're from Japan or Korea or another part of the United States, you can immediately contextualize the artist and feel a lot closer to the person behind the work or the nation behind the work. And a third thing I propose in JapanAmerica has to do with this concept of trauma. I talked about Tezuka's work arising out of World War II. The notion that anime and manga are very effective at communicating a kind of pain or darkness or darker psychological states of mind. And I do think it's arguable that after the events of September 11, 2001, and the rest of what's been happening politically and climatologically in the early years of the 21st century, that an aura of apocalypse or an aura of traumatic global times has infected many of us. And certainly if you pick up anime classics such as Akira or Evangelion or Ghost in the Shell, end of times or the end of the world are very persistent themes in these films. And quite interestingly, in the Japanese version of the apocalyptic story, one of the key differences you find, at least in comparison to the classic American apocalyptic